365 roller coaster reviews in 1 year. Quite the daunting challenge that I am so proud to say I accomplished in 2023. After every review, I gave each ride a highly specific score into the 100th decimal place. 9.09. It's a win for me. I'm going as high as 7.13. Going 4.89. It was far from perfect. In my last video, which, if you haven't yet, definitely check that out, I went over 10 roller coasters that deserved a much better score than I gave it live in the moment. But for this video, let's do the opposite, as there were definitely some coasters where, just maybe, I was a bit too generous. So once again, join me as I chronologically look back on my 2023 reviews and go over 10 roller coasters that I personally overrated and probably deserved a much lower score. Let's kick this off with a roller coaster that some of you may have been hoping for. Yes, Nitro.
9.02.
Now, before too much celebrating here, let me just say Nitro is still my second favorite B&M Hyper after Goliath at Over Georgia. And everything I said about Nitro in that review still stands. Great drop, really fun airtime, the most intense helix on any Hyper, a great finish, along with a pretty setting. Nitro is still incredible. I do regret the 9 though, as realistically, even for a Nitro lover as myself, it should have been more in the mid to high 8 range, and probably outside of my top 25. And yes, despite some rough moments, El Toro is the best roller coaster at Great Adventure. But I still love Nitro, guys. Enough with the hate. Not too far after my first Great Adventure trip, I made a long-awaited return to a childhood favorite, Canterbury Lake Park in New Hampshire. I covered their historic wooden roller coaster Yankee Cannonball, opening at the park way back in 1936.
6.73 for a score.
That score was for sure the case of, it was early in the year, and I didn't quite know my scale yet. Don't get me wrong, it's a fun coaster, and very smooth for its age, but considering Yankee Cannonball has buzz bars, aka a hoe for some pretty wild airtime, it kinda underdelivered. Looking back, I would have chopped probably a full point off and go in the 5.5 to 5.75 range for a fun, smooth, historic woody with some airtime. Just not worth over a 6. Next stop, and man, I truly hate to do this, but we're actually staying at Canterbury Lake, as the very next day I reviewed their Gerstlauer Eurofighter Untamed.
It's a 6.27.
Again, early in the year, but this was not a 6 roller coaster. I think I put way too much into the theme and paint scheme, which, to be fair, should 1000% be applauded. It looks incredible. But this was probably one of the weaker Eurofighters I've been on. Not entirely smooth, definitely some neck-banging at times, and just an overall coaster. Like Yankee Cannonball, take about a full point off, and go with a lower 5 for Untamed. I do love Canterbury Lake though. Wonderfully unique and old school, but man, I do wish their coaster lineup was a little stronger. It's kind of crazy that for such a small park, this is really all the greater Boston area has for a nearby amusement park. Hopefully this area, which FYI, is where I grew up, hence the little added point here. Hopefully it can get some more love in the future. It deserves it. Some of you didn't care for my quick little Diamondback opinion in my last video, so let's do another one. Nope, not for that one, but for Diamondback at the very charming Frontier City in Oklahoma.
I'm going 7.42.
Okay.
I will absolutely stand by that this launch loop model is still one of the best left from Arrow. It's a lot of fun, surprisingly terrifying airtime, especially going backwards. But 7.42 was absolutely crazy talk. I'd still go over a 6, if not even a high 6. But I may have potentially had some bias in getting to visit a kind of out-of-the-way park. Still highly recommend a visit at Frontier City though. Truly an underrated park. Let's head south over the Texas border for a park I hit during the same trip as Frontier City. The original Six Flags, over Texas. Their newest coaster that opened just last year was Aquaman Power Wave.
I'm gonna go 7.69.
This may have been my most egregiously high score of the year. Again, I still loved it, and I still think it was a fantastic and needed addition to Over Texas. Some solid air and hang time. You get both forwards and backwards sensations, but 7.69? Come on, man, what are you doing? Maybe on a good day, as apparently this was for me, you could debate a low 7, but this is, if anything, a mid-6 at best. Some may even say it's not a roller coaster at all. I, of course, do, and while very, very fun, putting it in the great you travel to ride this coaster category? Nah, calm down, Brian. It's fun, just not that good. 5 down, 5 to go all, as we head to the place where the Carolinas meet, the delightful Carowinds, for a well-known coaster called Copperhead Strike.
Giving it a score of 8.17.
I feel I have to start most of these with, I still love the coaster, guys, and such is the case for Copperhead. Looking back, though, I regret the 8. It would probably go closer to 7.75. While it does have a little bit of everything, launch, airtime, fun inversions, they're all far from world-class moments. And as I mentioned in that review, it is starting to have some slightly rattly moments, especially after riding the other prominent mock in the US, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, which in my opinion blows Copperhead away. It just falls short of that truly great level that maybe the eyeball test wants you to think it is. Love me some Copperhead, still probably the second best at Carowinds. I just wish it was a little bit more. Next up, we go to Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which, FYI, you may see an upcoming video from there relatively soon, wink wink. They have a very fun, intimate impulse coaster that was formerly at Geauga Lake called Possessed.
7.55.
Do I have to say it again? Yes, it's still awesome. But I don't know what was with my mid-7s last spring, as I had probably put Possessed more in the upper 6s. These rides truly have some excellent launches, but have for sure developed a bit of a rattle. I'll always hop on these things at least once per visit, but for me, and hey, maybe it's because I'm getting older, they're very hard to re-ride. Especially after riding Steel Venom at Valley Fair with the holding brake, hint hint Dorney, that would be great. I've experienced the king of impulses in the States, and Possessed falls just shy of that. It's now time to head to a park and state that gets people talking, for good or for bad. Kings Island, all. And we're talking about a beloved coaster that I probably went a bit too crazy about. The Beast.
I did not think that the Beast is gonna get a score from Coaster 365 of 8.65. Yeah.
Yo, that was high. Don't get me wrong, and I know, here we go again. The Beast is unique, historic, has a beautiful setting, gives an iconic night ride. But at the end of the day, it's a speedy stroll through the woods. Of course, before that epic helix. But that's really it. I would still give points to the history and all that jazz, and I'd ride multiple times every visit for sure. And I'd even still consider that 8. Just not an 8.65. Mystic Timbers is still easily my go-to at Kings Island. The debate for number 2, though, Orion, Beast, I still don't know. I would not blame you for any one of those. Now let's fly over the Atlantic for the first European coaster to make one of these lists. Listen all, I've been an enthusiast since 2017, and finally getting to a major European park was truly surreal for me. Which is why I definitely went a bit too high during my review of Two Tatis at Parc Asteres in France.
We're going 9.22.
Not only was it my first big Euro park, it was a new 2023 Intimate that was on everyone's list, and getting to ride it within its first few months, the bias was 10,000% at play here for me. It's still phenomenal. It still blows its American cousin Pantheon out of the water. Wonderfully themed, fantastic airtime moments and launches. I don't know if it's a 9 though, all. The top hat was for sure underwhelming, even compared to Pantheon. It's definitely a high 8, I am certain of that. And it may just crack my top 25, but it's far from my top 10, despite what my on-screen rankings show. Love to Tatis. Absolutely an elite coaster. Just let's back off from the 9 a little bit. All right, all. We made it to the final coaster on this list. A ride I covered all the way in November called American Thunder at Six Flags St. Louis. 8.15. Favorite in the park. Now I love me some GCI, mostly all of them. But looking back, I think American Thunder is towards the bottom of that list. The 8.15 was way too high, and I definitely would place it under Mr. Freeze at its own park. Still an incredibly fun wooden roller coaster that's absolutely worthy of at least a low 7. But there's a good 5 to 7 GCIs I would place over American Thunder. Underrated lineup in park, though, at Six Flags St. Louis. I'd for sure go again. And American Thunder, still a great roller coaster. So there you have it. 10 roller coasters of my 365 that are more realistically scored. And hopefully to most of your agreement. I want to give a huge thank you for such a wonderful response and support to my 10 Coasters I Underrated video. It absolutely has given me the motivation to keep this channel going and put more of these videos out there for you all, which you can absolutely expect on at least a weekly basis going forward through the spring, with the hope of even going bi-weekly once the summer hits. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.